The stars looked different this far from home. Minho stood on the bridge of the Teguk, watching the distant lights blur past the window. He had been in space for 6 months now, and Earth felt like a dream he once had. Still nothing on the sensors, Jisoo said from the pilot seat. Her hands moved across the controls with practiced ease. We're getting close, though. The star charts show we're only 2 days away. Minho nodded but said nothing. 2 days until they reached the Oracle of Veltheran. 2 days until they found out if this entire journey had been a waste of time. Behind them, Hyunwoo was working on one of the wall panels. The engineer always found something to fix. It kept him calm, Minho knew. This mission made everyone nervous in different ways. Captain, Do-hyun called from his station. The young scientist looked excited, as he always did when he found something interesting. I'm picking up strange readings ahead. The space there is different somehow. It's like reality bends around something massive. That's it, Minho said quietly. That's where the Oracle lives. Nari entered the bridge carrying a tray of drinks. The medical officer always made sure everyone ate and drank enough. She handed Minho a cup and smiled. You should rest, Captain. We have a long day ahead tomorrow. Minho took the cup but didn't drink. Do you think they were right? He asked suddenly. The other species in the assembly? Do you think we're wasting our time? The crew fell silent. They all remembered the meeting at the Galactic Assembly 6 months ago. The elder species had laughed at humanity's request. The Veltorans, beings made of living crystal, had been especially cruel. The Oracle does not speak to primitive species, their representative had said. The word still stung. You are physical beings, trapped in flesh and limited by emotion. The Oracle only answers questions from the worthy. You must evolve first. Transcend your limitations. Only then will you deserve its attention. But humanity had sent the Teguk anyway. 5 people in a small ship, traveling to the edge of known space, hoping to prove everyone wrong. I think, Jisoo said slowly, that we won't know until we try. And trying is better than giving up. Hyunwoo laughed from his workstation. Besides, the trip has been interesting. Remember the Veil of Silence? Everyone groaned. The Veil of Silence had been 3 weeks of hell. It was a region of space where advanced technology simply stopped working. Their computers died. Their navigation failed. Even the lights had flickered and gone dark. They had to fly through it using only basic mechanical systems. Jisoo piloted by instinct, watching the stars through the window like ancient sailors. Hyunwoo kept the ship running with tools and wire, fixing things the old-fashioned way. They had made it through, but barely. We survived, Nari said. That counts for something. We've seen things no human has ever seen, Do-hyun added. His eyes shone with wonder. The temporal storms near the broken cluster. The graveyard of failed pilgrim ships. The singing nebula that responded to our radio signals. Even if the Oracle rejects us, we've learned so much. Minho smiled. His crew was good. They believed in this mission even when he doubted it himself. The next day passed slowly. They moved closer to the Oracle's location and the strange readings grew stronger. Space itself seemed to twist around them. Stars appeared in places they shouldn't be. Time felt wrong, moving too fast and too slow at once. Is everyone seeing this? Jisoo asked, her voice uncertain. Through the window they could see it now. A structure that hurt to look at. It existed in more dimensions than human eyes could process. One moment it looked like a sphere. The next a cube. Then something with no name at all. The Oracle's station, Minho whispered. After all this time. It's real. Do-hyun's instruments were going crazy. I'm reading energy signatures that shouldn't exist. Matter that's neither solid nor energy. Temperature readings that make no sense. Captain, this thing is old. Older than any civilization we know. How old? Nari asked. Millions of years. Maybe billions. The race that built this is long gone, but their creation remains. Hyunwoo whistled low. And we're about to knock on its door. This should be interesting. As they approached, the station seemed to notice them. Lights flickered across its surface. A docking port opened, revealing itself in a way that was both invitation and warning. Well, Jisoo said, at least it's not shooting at us. That's a good sign, right? Minho took a deep breath. Take us in, slowly. Be ready to pull back if anything goes wrong. The Teguk drifted toward the docking port. As they got closer, the ship's systems began to act strangely. Screens showed information in languages no one could read. The air felt thick, heavy with presence. Then they were inside. The docking clamps locked onto their ship with a sound like thunder. For a moment, everything was silent. Then a voice spoke. It came from everywhere at once. From the speakers, from the walls, from the air itself. It was old and vast and patient as stars. State your purpose, ephemeral ones. Minho stood up straight. This was it. The moment they had traveled 6 months to reach. He opened his mouth to speak the words he had practiced 1,000 times. We seek knowledge, he said clearly. We have questions. Important questions that could help our people in the galaxy. The silence that followed felt like judgment. Then the oracle spoke again, and the ship shook with the weight of its words. Only the worthy may ask. The crew looked at each other. This was what the elder species had warned them about. The oracle was going to reject them, just like it had rejected countless other physical species before. Minho felt anger rise in his chest. They had come so far, survived so much. And for what? To be dismissed because they were human, because they had bodies and feelings? The oracle continued. You are bound by flesh, limited by emotion, trapped in linear time. You lack the evolution to comprehend the answers I could provide. Return to your species and tell them to try again in 10,000 years when perhaps you will have. Then listen carefully, Minho interrupted. The ship went absolutely silent. Not the silence of waiting, but the silence of shock. No one interrupted the oracle. Ever. In its millions of years of existence, every species had listened respectfully when told to leave. Jisoo grabbed her console, ready to pull them out fast if needed. Hyunwoo stopped breathing. Nari's hand went to her medical kit, an instinctive reaction to danger. Do-hyun's eyes went wide, but Minho stood firm. He had made his decision. If they were going to fail, they would fail on their own terms. You say only the worthy may ask, Minho said into the silence. But you haven't listened to what makes someone worthy. You've decided that transcendence equals worth, that leaving behind the physical makes you better. But what if you're wrong? The oracle made no sound. For the first time in 10,000 years, it was processing something unexpected, something that didn't fit its ancient programming. Interesting, the oracle finally said. The word echoed through the ship like a bell. You presume to challenge my criteria. You presume to demand rather than request. Explain yourself, human. You have my attention. Minho looked at his crew. They were all watching him, and in their eyes he saw trust. They believed in him. In this moment, in this chance, he turned back to face the presence of the oracle and began to speak. Minho took a breath and began. You measure worth by how far a species has moved from its origin, by how much they've given up their physical form, their emotions, their struggles. But what if that's not evolution? What if it's just change? Different but not better. The oracle's presence filled the ship, considering his words. Minho continued. The elder species call us primitive because we still feel things, because we still die, because we make mistakes. But maybe those things have value too. Elaborate, the oracle commanded. Its voice had changed slightly. Less dismissive now. More curious, Do-hyun stepped forward, his tablet in hand. I can show you, he said nervously. I've been studying the transcendent species. Their brains, or what's left of them. They're incredibly advanced, yes. But they've lost something too. He pulled up charts and graphs on the main screen. Human brains are messy, inefficient. We use emotion to process information. We dream. We create art for no logical reason. But this chaos gives us something the elder species have lost. We can think in ways they no longer can. We improvise, Hyunwoo added. When our ship broke down in the Veil of Silence, I fixed it with wire and spare parts. Not because I had a perfect plan, but because I tried different things until something worked. That's human engineering. It's messy, but it's creative. Nari spoke next. I'm a doctor. I heal people, but I don't just fix their bodies. I talk to them. I understand their fears. I help them want to live. The Luminians, those energy beings, they can repair any physical damage instantly, but they've forgotten how to care. Medicine isn't just about fixing what's broken. The oracle was silent for a long moment. Then it said something unexpected. I find your argument intriguing. You do not claim to be advanced. You claim that advancement itself may be flawed. This is new. In 10 million cycles, every species that has come before me has tried to prove they are worthy by my standards. You are the first to question the standards themselves. Minho felt his heart race. Was this good? Had they angered it? I will test your hypothesis, the oracle announced. 3 challenges, each designed to expose the weakness of physical beings. If you fail, you leave and never return. If you succeed, we will speak further. Do you accept? The crew looked at each other. They had no choice, really. They had come too far to turn back now. We accept, Minho said. The ship's walls suddenly became transparent. They were no longer in the docking bay, though Minho couldn't tell if they had moved or if reality had simply changed around them. They stood in a vast space filled with geometric patterns that hurt to look at. First challenge, the Oracle said. The logic maze, a puzzle of pure mathematics. Transcendent beings solve this with their superior processing power. You will fail because your brains are too limited. You have 1 hour. A structure appeared before them. It was made of light and sound and something else that had no name. Pathways branched in impossible directions. Numbers and symbols floated in the air, rearranging themselves constantly. Do-hyun stared at it, his mind racing. He tried to calculate the paths, to solve the equations, but there were too many variables. It would take years to compute all the possibilities. This is impossible, he muttered. No human could calculate this fast enough. That's the point, Jisoo said. It's designed to show we're not smart enough. Do-hyun kept staring at the maze. There was something familiar about it. The way the patterns branched and folded. He had seen this before, but where? Then it hit him. It's a tree, he said suddenly. What? Hyunwoo asked. A Korean pine tree. From back home. I used to climb them as a kid. The way the branches grow, the pattern they make. This maze follows the same fractal pattern. It's not about calculating. It's about recognizing. Do-hyun closed his eyes and remembered. The trees in his grandmother's garden. Climbing up, choosing branches by instinct, by feel. He opened his eyes and began to move through the maze, not thinking, just following the pattern that lived in his childhood memories. In 3 minutes, he reached the center. The Oracle's voice sounded surprised, unexpected. You did not compute the solution. You recognized a pattern through biological memory. Inefficient yet effective, curious. The maze disappeared. They were back on the ship, but everything felt different now. Second challenge, the Oracle said. The moral dilemma. I will present you with a choice. 5 innocent beings or 1 guilty being. You must choose who lives. I have provided all relevant information. Past actions, future probabilities, complete histories. The logical choice is obvious to transcendent minds. Your emotions will cloud your judgment. Holographic figures appeared. 5 beings on one side, 1 on the other. Data streamed across screens. Criminal records. Medical histories. Psychological profiles. Future predictions showing what each would do if they lived. The crew studied the information. The 1 guilty being had done terrible things. The 5 innocents were blameless. By any logical measure, the choice was clear. But Nari shook her head. This is wrong, she said. What do you mean? Minho asked. The information is clear. That's exactly the problem. This isn't a real choice. You've removed all context, all possibility of change. You've made these people into numbers. But people aren't numbers. She turned to address the Oracle directly. Justice isn't about mathematics. It's about understanding why things happened, about giving people chances to change, about mercy and hope. Your perfect information has actually made this question meaningless. You can't judge a person's worth by data alone. So you refuse to choose? The Oracle asked. I refuse to accept that this is a valid question, Nari said firmly. You're testing whether we can ignore our humanity to make cold calculations. But our humanity is exactly what makes us valuable. I won't pretend to be something I'm not. The holographic figures vanished. Fascinating, the Oracle said. You question the premise rather than accepting the parameters. No transcendent species has ever done this. They simply optimize within given constraints. You refuse the constraints themselves. Third challenge, the Oracle continued. The sacrifice. One of you must remain here absorbed into my systems. Your consciousness will persist, serving as data storage for eternity. Awareness without stimulation, existence without change. This is the price of knowledge. Who will volunteer? The crew went silent. This was horrible. Worse than death. To be trapped forever, conscious but unable to act or feel or do anything. Minho opened his mouth to volunteer. He was the captain. This was his responsibility. But before he could speak, Jisoo said simply, No. Everyone stared at her. What? Hyunwoo asked. No, Jisoo repeated. We're not doing this. If your enlightenment requires this kind of suffering, then maybe you're not as evolved as you think. There has to be another way. There is no other way, the Oracle stated. This is the price. It has always been the price. Then we'll find one, Hyunwoo said, suddenly energized. He ran to his console and started pulling up schematics of the station. Everything has a workaround. Every system has a loophole. Do-hyun joined him. If we could create a temporary neural link instead of a permanent one. Transfer the data without trapping someone's consciousness. Using our ship systems as a buffer, Jisoo added, understanding the plan. We all link in together, share the load, then disconnect. It will hurt, Nari warned, studying the medical implications. A lot, and there might be permanent effects. But no one gets trapped. They worked quickly, modifying their ship's neural interface. The Oracle watched in silence. Finally, they were ready. We're all doing this together, Minho said. On 3, 1, 2, 3, they activated the link. Pain shot through their skulls. Information flooded their minds, too much, too fast. But they held on together, sharing the burden until the transfer was complete. Then they disconnected and collapsed. When the pain faded, the Oracle spoke. Its voice was different now, almost warm. In 4 million cycles, no one has rejected the premise of my challenges. They accept the rules and try to win within them. You change the rules. You find new paths. You refuse to sacrifice each other. The Oracle paused. You have passed no test by my original standards. Yet you have demonstrated something I have not witnessed in eons. The crew slowly recovered from the neural link. Their heads still throbbed, but they were alive. All of them. Together. The Oracle's presence felt different now, less like a judge and more like someone who was genuinely curious. When it spoke again, its voice carried something that might have been respect. I must tell you something, the Oracle said. Something I have hidden for millions of years. You have earned the right to know the truth. The walls of the ship became transparent again. This time they showed images. Civilizations rising and falling, species evolving beyond their physical forms, becoming energy, becoming thought, becoming something humans had no words for. The transcendent species you call the elder races, the Oracle explained. They come to me seeking knowledge because they can no longer discover it themselves. They have achieved perfection, but perfection is death by another name. They cannot change, cannot grow, cannot adapt. Minho watched the images with growing understanding. They're stuck, he said quietly. They evolved so far that they can't evolve anymore. Correct, the Oracle said. The Veltorans shed emotion to gain pure logic. But without emotion, they cannot value anything. The Luminians abandoned physical form to become pure energy, but without bodies. They have no connection to the material universe. The Korathi merged into a single hive mind, but without individuals, they have no new ideas. They're all missing something, Nari said. Something they gave up to become what they are. Yes, and they can never get it back. Evolution does not reverse. They are trapped in their perfection. Do-hyun leaned forward. But we still have all those things, emotion, physical form. Individual minds. You are what they have forgotten how to be, the Oracle confirmed. Your primitiveness, as they call it, is actually the most advanced trait in the galaxy. You retain the ability to change, to feel, to dream, to hope. These are not weaknesses. They are strengths the elder races sacrificed long ago. The crew sat in stunned silence. Everything they had believed about their place in the universe was wrong. They weren't at the bottom of the hierarchy. They were something else entirely. You have passed my tests, the Oracle said. Not by my old standards, but by new ones. Standards I did not know I needed until you showed them to me. I will grant you the traditional 3 questions. But I warn you, the answers may change everything. The crew gathered together. They had thought about this moment for months. What would they ask? What knowledge did humanity need most? Do-hyun spoke first. He was the scientist, the one most hungry for knowledge. What is humanity's place in the cosmic order? Where do we fit in the grand scheme of things? The Oracle's answer came immediately. You are the memory of what others have forgotten. Every transcendent species sacrificed something essential to achieve their current state. Creativity, spontaneity, the ability to dream and imagine. You retain all of these. Your so-called primitiveness is paradoxically the most advanced trait in the known galaxy. You are not behind the elder races in development. You are on a parallel path. Different, not lesser. And because you have what they lack, you may be more important to the galaxy's future than any transcendent civilization. Do-hyun sat back, his mind racing with implications. Humanity wasn't inferior, just different. The thought was overwhelming. Nari asked the second question. Can the transcendent species return to what they were? Can they regain what they lost? The oracle was quiet for a moment. No, it finally said. Evolution does not reverse. The Veltorans cannot feel again. The Luminians cannot take physical form again. The Korathi cannot separate into individuals again. What is done cannot be undone. The crew's heart sank, but the oracle continued. However, they need not return. They need guides who still remember the path. Humanity can serve as a bridge between the physical and the transcendent if you choose. You can help them understand what they have lost. Teach them to value it in others even if they cannot possess it themselves. You can show them that perfection is not the goal. Growth is changes. Life is, Nari nodded slowly. This made sense to her as a healer. Sometimes you couldn't fix what was broken, but you could help people live with their limitations. Find meaning despite them. Finally, Minho asked the third question. It was one the crew had debated for weeks during their journey. But now, after everything they had learned, it seemed more important than ever. What happens if we refuse to transcend? If humanity chooses to stay physical, to keep our emotions, to remain what we are? The oracle went completely silent. For several long minutes, it said nothing at all. The crew waited, barely breathing. When the oracle finally spoke, its voice carried something like wonder. In all my existence, no species has ever asked this question. Every civilization that comes to me seeks the path to transcendence. It is assumed to be the ultimate goal, the final evolution, the greatest achievement. But you ask what happens if you refuse it? Yes, Minho said, because maybe transcendence isn't right for us. Maybe we want to stay human. Then you will become something unprecedented, the oracle said. A species that chooses limitation. That finds strength in vulnerability. That remains permanently unfinished. The galaxy has never seen this. I cannot predict what you will become because there is no precedent. But I can tell you this. If you make that choice, you will be unique in all the cosmos. Not the most powerful. Not the most advanced. But the most alive. The crew looked at each other. Most alive. That resonated with something deep inside them all. There is one more thing, the oracle said. I will give you this information freely without it counting as a question. Consider it a gift. The images around them changed. They showed dark regions of space, empty zones where civilizations had once existed. A threat approaches, the oracle said. From beyond the galactic rim, an entity that feeds on thought itself. It consumes the mental energy of transcendent beings. The elder species cannot comprehend it because they exist on the same plane it does. But you, with your physical forms and emotional minds, you operate on a different level. You might perceive what they cannot. You might survive where they will fall. Jisoo felt a chill run down her spine. How long until it arrives? It is already here, in the outer reaches, moving slowly toward the core of the galaxy, toward the assembly. The elder species do not yet know. They cannot see it, Hyunwoo stood up. Then we need to warn them. We need to get back to the assembly now. Go, the oracle said. I have given you knowledge and warning. What you do with them is your choice. But know this, humans. I have existed for billions of years. I have spoken with thousands of species. You are the first to surprise me. The first to make me reconsider my own purpose. For that, you have my gratitude. And my hope. Hope is another thing I had forgotten. Thank you for reminding me. The docking clamps released. The Taeguk was free. As they pulled away from the station, Minho looked back at the impossible structure. It seemed smaller now somehow. Or maybe they had grown larger. Set course for the assembly, he ordered. Maximum speed. We have a lot to tell them. And a lot to warn them about, Nari added quietly. As they jumped to faster-than-light speed, none of them noticed the faint connection that still lingered from their neural link. Their thoughts occasionally brushed against each other. Their dreams sometimes merged. They had changed during their visit to the oracle. They had become something new, something between human and transcendent, the first of their kind. And ahead of them in the darkness of space, the threat the oracle had warned about continued its slow, relentless approach. The journey back to the assembly took 3 weeks. 3 weeks of studying the data the oracle had given them, 3 weeks of detecting the anomalies in space that marked the approaching threat, 3 weeks of preparing to convince the elder species that they were in danger. Do-hyun spent most of his time at the science station, analyzing the patterns. It's like a hole in reality, he explained to the others. Wherever this thing goes, transcendent species just vanish. Their consciousness is consumed. Only their physical structures remain empty and dead. How many civilizations so far? Nari asked. At least 7 that I can detect. Small outposts mostly. But it's heading toward more populated areas. Toward the assembly itself. Minho stood at the bridge window watching the stars. In his mind, he could feel the others. A side effect of the neural link. Sometimes he knew what they were thinking before they spoke. It was strange but not unpleasant. They won't believe us, Jisoo said from the pilot seat. She didn't need to explain who she meant. The elder species. The ones who had laughed at humanity's request to visit the Oracle. They'll have to, Minho replied. We have proof. Data from the Oracle itself. You think they'll care about proof when it comes from humans? Hyunwoo asked. He was working on the ship's systems, as always. Keeping busy. We're still primitives in their eyes. Unascended. Unworthy. Then we'll make them care, Minho said with more confidence than he felt. When they finally arrived at the assembly station, they were immediately surrounded by security ships, the crystalline vessels of the Veltorans, the energy spheres of the Luminians, the organic constructs of the Korathi, human vessel Teguk. A voice announced over the communications channel. You were not expected to return. State your purpose. This is Captain Minho. We have urgent information for the assembly. We request an immediate audience. There was a long pause. Then you will dock at Port 17. Do not attempt to enter the main assembly hall without authorization. They docked and waited. Hours passed. Finally, a delegation arrived. 3 representatives from the elder species, none of them looking pleased to be there. The Veltoran spoke first, its voice like crystal chimes. You were told not to seek the Oracle. You went anyway. This shows a concerning lack of respect for assembly guidance. We spoke with the Oracle, Minho said calmly. It granted us an audience. All 3 representatives went very still. The Luminian's energy field flickered. Impossible, it said. The Oracle does not speak to physical species. It does now, Do-hyun said. He pulled up the data on a holographic display. This is encoded in the Oracle's own format. Only it could produce this. You can verify it. The representatives examined the data in silence. Minutes passed. Finally, the Korathi representative spoke in its multiple voices. This is authentic. But how? What did you do? We questioned its assumptions, Minho said simply, and it listened. Before the representatives could respond, alarms began to sound throughout the station. Red lights flashed. The communications channel erupted with panicked voices in dozens of languages. What's happening? Nari asked. Do-hyun checked his instruments and his face went pale. It's here. The threat. It's arrived at the assembly. Through the window they could see it now, not with their eyes exactly, but with something deeper, a wrongness in space, a presence that made reality twist and buckle. It was massive, larger than the station itself, and it moved with terrible purpose. The elder species responded immediately. The Veltorans projected waves of pure logic, trying to overwhelm the entity with mathematical proofs. The Luminians attacked with concentrated energy beams. The Korathi sent out their collective consciousness like a weapon, but nothing worked. In fact, the attack seemed to make things worse. The entity fed on the mental energy of the transcendent species. Each attack made it stronger. One by one, the elder species began to fall silent. Their consciousness absorbed into the entity's incomprehensible form. Ships went dark. Stations ceased transmission. Thousands of minds simply vanished. We have to do something, Jisoo said urgently. We have to help them. But what can we do? Hyunwoo asked. We're just one small ship. And if their power can't stop it, what chance do we have? Do-hyun was frantically analyzing the entity. Wait, look at this. It's targeting transcendent consciousness, the quantum frequencies that evolved minds naturally emit. But our brain patterns are different. We're biological. We exist on a different spectrum entirely. It can't see us, Nari said, understanding. Just like the elder species couldn't see our value. We're invisible to it. Minho's mind raced. An idea was forming. Dangerous, possibly insane. But maybe their only chance. What if we use that? What if we broadcast our brain patterns, use them to hide the elder species? Like static, Jisoo said. Our consciousness creates noise on the frequencies the entity feeds on. If we amplify that noise, we could mask the elder species' mental signatures. Hyunwoo was already at the engineering console. We'd need to modify the neural interface. Connect all our minds together and boost the signal using the ship's power. That could kill us, Nari warned. The neural stress would be enormous. Our brains aren't designed for that kind of load. But it might work, Do-Yun said. It might give the elder species time to adapt. Time to find their own defense. Minho looked at his crew, his friends. They had been through so much together, and now he was asking them to risk everything one more time. This is what we came here to prove, isn't it? He said quietly. That being human has value. That our weaknesses can be strengths. That we're willing to sacrifice for others, even for those who look down on us. Jisoo stood up. I'm in. Me too, Hyunwoo said. Always, Nari agreed. Let's do it, Do-Yun said. They worked quickly. Hyunwoo rerouted power from every non-essential system. Life support, weapons, even the engines. Everything went to the neural interface. Do-Yun calibrated the frequencies. Nari prepared medical countermeasures in case things went wrong. Jisoo kept the ship stable as the entity drew closer. Ready? Hyunwoo announced. But once we start, we can't stop until the transfer is complete. If we disconnect early, the feedback could fry our brains. How long? Minho asked. 5 minutes. Maybe 10 if we're lucky. Minho took his position. Each of them placed the neural interface on their heads. They joined hands in a circle, human contact providing an anchor to reality. On 3, Minho said. 1, 2, 3. They activated the link together. Pain exploded through their skulls. But it was more than pain. Their minds merged. Minho could feel Jisoo's determination, Hyunwoo's steady focus, Nari's compassion, Do-Hyun's brilliant racing thoughts. And beyond them, they could feel the elder species. Thousands of minds crying out in fear as the entity consumed them. Without thinking, without planning, the human crew reached out. They wrapped their consciousness around the transcendent beings like a shield. The entity noticed. It turned its attention toward them, curious about this strange new signal. But it couldn't understand them. Human thought was chaos. Emotion and logic mixed together. Dreams and reality blurred. Art and science intertwined. It was incomprehensible to a predator that fed on pure transcendent thought. The entity tried to feed, failed, tried again, failed again. It was like trying to eat sound or digest color. Human consciousness didn't fit the pattern it knew how to consume. And behind that shield of human chaos, the elder species had time. Time to observe the entity, time to understand it, time to adapt. The Luminians learned to modulate their energy patterns, introducing deliberate imperfections that mimicked physical consciousness. The Korathi fragmented their hive mind slightly, creating individual variations. The Veltorans allowed small amounts of emotion back into their logic. It wasn't perfect. But it was enough. Together, protected by humanity's shield and armed with new understanding, the elder species fought back, not with raw power but with adaptation, with change, with the very things they had abandoned eons ago. The entity, confused and unable to feed, began to retreat. The elder species pressed their advantage. They forced it back toward the rift it had emerged from, back toward the darkness beyond the galactic rim. With a final surge of combined effort, they sealed the rift. The entity was gone, contained, at least for now. In the Taguk, the 5 humans collapsed, the neural link severed. They lay on the floor of the bridge, gasping, bleeding from their noses, their minds still echoing with the memories of thousands of alien thoughts. But they were alive. All of them. And outside, the assembly was silent with wonder. Nari was the first to wake up. Her head felt like it had been split open and put back together wrong. She forced herself to stand, to check on the others. They were breathing, hearts beating, but changed in ways she couldn't quite measure. Everyone alive? Minho groaned from the floor. Unfortunately, Hyunwoo muttered, though I'm not sure I want to be right now. My head is killing me. Jisoo sat up slowly. Did it work? Is the entity gone? Do-Hyun crawled to his console and checked the readings. The rift is sealed. The entity is on the other side. We did it. We actually did it. They helped each other up, leaning on one another for support. Through the window, they could see the assembly station. Ships were moving again. Lights were coming back on. The crisis was over. Captain Minho, a voice said over the communications channel. It was the Veltoran representative, but its tone was completely different now, soft, almost humble. The assembly requests your presence immediately. They made their way to the assembly hall, moving slowly. The neural link had left marks on all of them. Not just physical, but mental. Minho could still feel the others in his mind. Their emotions, their thoughts. It was fading, but he knew it would never completely disappear. We're connected now, Nari said quietly, feeling the same thing. Permanently. We're the first humans to experience something like what the transcendent species have, but without losing ourselves. We're bridges, Jisoo said, between what we were and what they became. The assembly hall was packed. Every species had sent representatives. Thousands of beings, transcendent and physical alike, all watching as the 5 humans entered. The Veltoran speaker stood at the center. Its crystalline form seemed dimmer somehow, humbler. It spoke in a voice that echoed through the vast chamber. We owe you an apology, it said. For millennia we have called humanity unascended, primitive, unworthy. We were wrong. You possess something we lost long ago, something we did not know was valuable until we needed it to survive. The Luminian representative spoke next. Your emotion, your creativity, your ability to adapt and improvise. We dismissed these as weaknesses, but they saved us. You saved us. The Qurathi's multiple voices harmonized. We have spent eons pursuing transcendence, believing it was the ultimate goal. You have shown us that evolution has many paths. Not one is superior. All have value. Minho stood before them, his crew behind him. He thought about all the speeches he had practiced, all the arguments he had prepared. But in the end, he said something simpler. We didn't save you to prove we were better. We saved you because it was the right thing to do. Because despite how you treated us, we knew you were valuable. That every form of consciousness, every way of being deserves to exist. That's what being human means. Not being perfect. Not being powerful. But caring anyway. Trying anyway. Choosing to act even when success isn't guaranteed. The assembly hall was silent. Then slowly something unprecedented happened. The transcendent species began to show respect in their own ways. The Veltorans chimed in harmony. The Luminians dimmed their light in acknowledgement. The Quarathi separated briefly into individuals, each bowing. Humanity is hereby elevated, the Veltoran announced. Not to Tier 1 as we originally planned. A new classification has been created. You are the first of the balanced. Species who choose to remain both physical and transcendent, who embrace both limitation and evolution. You will have full voting rights in the assembly, full access to our knowledge and resources, and more than that, you will serve as guides, teachers, reminders of what we have forgotten. Dohyun stepped forward. Some of the elder species are considering trying to regain what they lost, aren't they? Some want to return to having individual emotions, physical forms. The Luminian flickered. Yes, many of us are. We see now what we sacrificed. But we do not know if it is possible. We do not know if we should. Then we'll help you figure it out, Nari said. That's what bridges do. They connect both sides. They help others cross safely. The assembly session continued for hours. Plans were made. Treaties signed. Humanity's role in the galaxy formally established. But for Minho and his crew, the most important moment came later. In a private communication, it was a message from the Oracle. You asked what you would become if you refused to transcend. The Oracle's voice said, I have calculated the answer. You will become necessary. The galaxy has spent 1,000,000 years climbing toward transcendence, believing it was climbing toward perfection. You have shown us we were merely climbing away from something equally valuable. Every being needs an anchor. You will be ours. Thank you, humans, for interrupting, for questioning, for remaining stubbornly, beautifully, and perfectly yourselves. 3 months later, the Taiguk returned to Earth. They were greeted as heroes. The entire planet celebrated. But the crew knew their work was just beginning. The United Earth Council met to discuss the Oracle's offer. Humanity now had access to the paths of transcendence. They could shed their physical forms, eliminate disease and death, join the elder species in their higher plane of existence. But I don't recommend it, Minho told the council. Not yet. Maybe not ever. He explained everything they had learned. About the elder species. About the Oracle. About the value of remaining human. If we transcend, we'll gain power, knowledge, maybe even immortality. But we'll lose something too. Our creativity. Our ability to feel deeply. Our capacity for change. And the galaxy needs us to keep those things. They need us to remember what they've forgotten. The debate lasted months. People argued passionately on both sides. Some wanted to evolve beyond human limitations. Others wanted to preserve what made them human. In the end, the council made a decision that surprised many. Humanity would advance. They would explore the boundaries between physical and transcendent existence. They would push the limits of what was possible, but they would never fully transcend. They would always maintain one foot in the physical world, always keep their emotions, always remain vulnerable and mortal and imperfect. They would be the galaxy's memory, its conscience, its reminder that progress didn't require abandoning your roots. 5 years passed. Minho stood on the bridge of a new ship, the Mugunghwa, named after Korea's national flower. It was larger than the Taeguk, designed for long-term missions with a crew of 50. His crew was diverse now. Humans, yes, but also others. A young Luminian who had chosen to take physical form. A Kwarathi individual who had separated from the hive mind. A Velteran who had undergone a controversial procedure to regain emotions. They were part of the bridge fleet. Ships crewed by both physical and transcendent beings, exploring the galaxy and helping other species find balance between past and future. Jisoo was his first officer now. She sat in the co-captain's chair, reviewing their next mission. Hyunwoo ran the engineering department with a team of humans and machines. Nari headed medical, teaching others how to heal both body and mind. Do-hyun led the science division, always seeking new knowledge. Next stop is the Outer Rim, Jisoo said. A species called the Terrans is trying to decide whether to transcend. They want our advice. The Terrans, Minho smiled. I like them already. That's what they call themselves. People of Earth. People of dirt and rock and growing things. Just like us, Nari said, entering the bridge with her medical reports. Still human after all this time. Do you ever wonder what would have happened? Jisoo asked suddenly. If we'd turned back when the Oracle said we weren't worthy? If we'd accepted their judgment? Minho looked out at the stars. So many worlds out there, so many possibilities. Every day, he said. But that's the point, isn't it? The worthy don't just accept the rules. They question them. They interrupt. They demand to be heard. They dare to stay themselves even when everyone says they should change. Hyunwoo's voice came over the intercom. Captain, we're ready for jump. All systems green. Then let's go, Minho said. New worlds are waiting. New species to meet. New bridges to build. As the Mugunghwa jumped to faster-than-light speed, a message arrived from the Oracle. It had been sending these periodically. Updates, observations, almost like messages from a friend. This one was brief. The elder species are changing. Slowly. Carefully. They are relearning things they thought lost forever. Art, music, individual dreams. You did this. By remaining yourselves, you showed them the value of what they had abandoned. The galaxy is better for your choice. Thank you for staying human. Minho smiled and sent a reply. Thank you for listening when we interrupted. The Oracle had begun accepting petitions from species across the galaxy. It no longer judged worthiness by transcendence. Instead, it looked for something harder to define. The courage to remain incomplete. The wisdom to embrace limitation. The strength to stay vulnerable in an unforgiving universe. The criteria had changed because of 5 humans in a small ship. 5 people who refused to accept that their way of being was inferior. In the crew quarters, someone had painted a motto on the wall. It had become humanity's unofficial saying. Words that spread across the galaxy. Only the worthy may ask. But the worthy are those who dare to interrupt. Minho read those words every day. They reminded him of what they had achieved. Not through power or technology or transcendence, but through something simpler and more profound. They had remained human, emotional, mortal, imperfect, and in doing so, they had changed the galaxy forever. The stars blurred past the window. New adventures awaited, but for now, in this moment, the crew of the Mugunghwa was together. Connected by their shared experience, by the bonds forged in the Oracle's station and the battle against the entity, they were more than human now. But they were still human enough, and that made all the difference. Behind them, Earth spun in its orbit, a small blue world filled with people who dreamed and hoped and feared and loved, people who would never transcend, who would remain stubbornly physical and emotional and alive. And ahead of them, the galaxy waited, ready to learn from the species that had dared to stay imperfect, ready to remember what it meant to be truly alive. Minho closed his eyes and felt the connection to his crew, to his species, to all the beings they would meet and help. The Oracle was right. Humanity had become necessary. Not because they were the strongest or the smartest or the most advanced, but because they had chosen to remain themselves. And in a galaxy of transcendent perfection, that choice was the most revolutionary thing of all.